Fiverr, from its financial perspective, has not. So I'm trying to, turn to you and say, have you seen a change in behavior from your potential buyers, activity, anything out there that you can directly attribute that, launch date of GPT or ChatGPT and your traffic?
Work itself, from like clients' needs perspective, I really haven't seen too much of a change in what they're looking for.
Welcome to Inside Scoop with Sean Emery. Every week we are examining something new, bringing you closer to companies, sectors, and themes. This recording should not be construed as a substitute for personalized individual advice from Avery & Company or any guest on the show. This is for educational purposes only and not intended to make an offer or solicitation for any companies or securities mentioned. With that, let's get on with the episode. All right, welcome to Inside Scoop. We are here with Harlan Rappaport. He is the Fiverr guy. If you're on Twitter or X now, at the Fiverr guy. He has, a strong following there. He has been working on Fiverr for some time now. He'll share more about that. But, first off, welcome to, Inside Scoop and joining us today.
Yeah, thank you, Sean, and thanks for the invite. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, so I've known you through an emoji. Now I get to see your face here.
I think that looks like me. What do you think?
What?
I think that that emoji kind of looks like me.
It's spot on. I mean, I think you're an avatar right now. So
that was a Fiverr designer, by the way. So shout out.
Was it?
To that guy? Yes.
Yeah, shout out to the Fiverr designer. Yeah, we use Fiverr a lot. Obviously, full disclosure, we're investors in Fiverr, but outside of that, like we tend to use it for so many things. I think it kind of snowballs once you start using it. You start to realize, the power of this kind of instant work that you can create. And there's no connections, no ties, and you can kind of semi-vet out talent pretty quickly. And as you get on the platform more and more, you get to understand the nuances of it. But let's focus on you. Would love the audience to at least hear who you are, who your background is. I guess our point today is really to understand the life of somebody that are on these platforms very successfully. I think you have earnings of, north of 500,000-600,000, maybe more. I don't know. You can maybe share those if you want, but, I follow you on Twitter or X and, you're across different platforms. So first off, welcome, but also, just give us a little background of yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. So, from New York, went to school in Michigan, came right back here. Like we discussed a bit earlier, working for an asset manager. Pretty quickly realized, that wasn't the path for me. And so, kind of hustled my way into a few other, alternatives, nothing with any clear direction, more like a nights and weekends thing, trying to figure something out. And eventually, we can go all the way back to the origin. But eventually stumbled on Fiverr, offered up some pretty low risk, low intensity opportunities to offer some services. At the time, I definitely wasn't qualified to offer them and kind of grew into them. But it kind of snowballed from there. So for some context, I offer, email marketing services on Fiverr. That can range from, email design and development and campaign management and flow setup for, direct to consumer brands or really any company who really is looking for those services. And then I also have a bit of a prospecting arm. So that's help with, setting up cold campaigns, helping for B2B lead gen, sourcing leads, that kind of stuff. And all of that goes back to about, 2016, when I was when I was working for my neighbor, who ran a tattoo shop, or a tattoo supply shop, from his basement. And it was basically him, me, and my brother. We were working, I think it was, the summer between, sophomore and junior year of college, something like that. And just doing a bunch of random tasks for him. And I do owe him a lot of credit because he recognized I was a bit, self-motivated and digital savvy at the time. And he kind of just said, like, do marketing and do email, and gave me a complete autonomy over that. And so that's what I did for the summer. Learned a ton, had quite a bit of success with it for him. And it was back then in 2016 where I was like, if I can do this for a tattoo supply company, I can probably do this for any company. And so that's when I went to Fiverr and made the gig. Absolutely nothing came of it back in 2016. I kind of, went right back to school and forgot all about it. And it wasn't until 4 or 5 years later, that I revisited it, kind of in the middle of COVID out of boredom. and was like, oh, I'll just tinker around with this and see what happens. Um, and then from there, maybe about a month later, I got a message and an order, and I made, all a whopping $8. And then the following month it was 75, and the following month it was 1,000. And it just kept kind of snowballing. Eventually it got to like, 4 or 5 thousand bucks a month. It was some great beer money. But at no point did I think, it would turn into what it, has become today. Um, and that was until I met with, a few of the people, who work at Fiverr who manage like sellers, and hopped on the phone with them. Um, Basically, they were extremely blunt. They were like, "Your profile looks terrible. Here's everything you need to fix. Here's what you can be. Here's what you are. Do these things to get there." And it was almost like instant. As soon as I made those fixes, learned a little bit more about the platform, the algorithms, how to rank. That it started to kind of get serious. And at that point, I was,
When was that?
that was
Your
probably
intervention, your
yeah,
your gig intervention.
my intervention was probably early 2021. So I went about 6-8 months on my own, kind of snowballing. Even though at the time the quality of my service was pretty bad, to be honest. I mean, obviously I'm a harsh critic of myself, but as soon as I jumped on that call, made those fixes, it was like a 2-3x from there. And then for the following year and a half, it just kept growing. And then now we're at a pretty stable point. I'm trying to continue to offer new services, expand. I recently hired a team of VAs overseas who have been helping me out, free up a lot of my time.
Hmm.
And so
Are they
it's
from Fiverr or for like
no, these
independent?
are they're from like job boards like online jobs .ph, and not from Fiverr, just because I'm looking for full-time work from them. Um,
Okay, got it.
yeah, and so they've been extremely helpful and have helped me scale quite a bit, to where I am today.
Cool. Yeah. So it sounds like pretty interesting journey. Is it the same handle and login that you did in 2016 and
Yeah,
then you jumped? You
that's
remembered your username and
the
password?
worst part about Fiverr, that you can't change that stupid username. So mine is like hrap something something hrap 98, which it's been since I was in college.
I guess it shows you that username is, somewhat meaningless.
Yeah,
To some degree, obviously you would love to brand it, right? And
yeah,
like,
it would have been nice to create some agency name. Though recently Fiverr just allowed you to change your username display to your full name, which is like one of those little kind of efforts that they're doing to help legitimize the platform and help people take it more seriously. So that's been good. I just changed it back to my actual name, so you don't really see the tag as much anymore.
cool. Yeah, yeah. I'll make sure to put like your not the Fiverr guy, but your actual, I guess, tag
Awesome. Yeah.
on the show notes. So for anyone looking for some of the email marketing stuff, but the yeah, so cool. So that intervention that took place, was that them being proactive, or you reaching out and filling out some different things?
So that was Fiverr being proactive, though not in the way maybe I conveyed it originally. I think at the time they had just launched their Seller Plus program, and I was like in the pilot for that. And
Mm.
that was basically like successful sellers had the opportunity to pay like $30 a month for a variety of perks. I think that ranges from like special access to keyword analytics, which I use from time to time, some additional like metrics on your buyers so you can see their average order price. You can see the average rating they leave before they place an order. So that's been incredibly helpful. And then obviously the most helpful is like one-to-one consultation with, basically Fiverr seller consultants who work at Fiverr. And that was basically what the intervention was. I hopped on a quick call with one of the guys at Fiverr. He was incredibly helpful. And I still have a relationship with him today. And he basically told me exactly how to optimize, what I should be doing, what I shouldn't be doing, how to properly communicate, how to work within Fiverr's, algorithms. So he's been incredibly helpful over the past, 3 years almost.
Got it. And so that came with, so that was more of like part of the perks of being on Seller Plus.
That's a direct perk of it. Yeah.
Got it. Okay, cool. Yeah, yeah. Because I think they just in their last earnings call, I think they announced I think 20,000 or so,
Yeah,
Seller
they're at
Plus.
25,000 now.
Yeah, yeah. So pretty big. 30. I think there's two tiers, right? The 30,000 and like somewhere half in between that. But the so it sounds like your Seller Plus sounds like again. So for those listening, Seller Plus is something that you subscribe to as a seller to give you some of those extra analytics, marketing capabilities. and it sounds like, a little bit more, support for your page. What else I think is like, important to Seller Plus for you?
Um, yeah, I mean, you can bring up their perks pages. I think the one-to-one consultations every month or so, you can actually get them as much as you want, but typically it's about once a month that I use them. I think that's far and away the most helpful. Just to have a kind of a sounding board from Fiverr itself to talk about where you're at in terms of your gigs. You can talk about how your buyers are rating you, how they're looking at you, behind the scenes, stuff that you can't normally see. How long are people staying on your page before they're clicking on someone else? All like
Hmm.
really important metrics that you don't have access to as a seller on their plain dashboard. Um, they all help you out with that. And then the other perks, I think, you get paid a little bit earlier, which is solid. I think they have a coupon program, so you can send out 5, 10, 20% off to whoever you want. I think that's pretty much only a Seller Plus perk. Um, and there are a few others here and there that aren't hugely beneficial, frankly, relative to the consultations. But that has paid for itself 100 times over. It's a really good program.
Cool. Yeah. So there's Fiverr, right? There's Upwork. There's, some of the others that are out there, TopTal, and some others that are maybe more verticalized for, software development or something else. Recently you've, tinkered with Upwork, me just, following your page. And, how's that experience been like, from our standpoint, and from, I think both companies both say, the market's huge, right? Most of kind of call it gig work, freelance work is still, done through, people to people saying, hey, I have this person, you should use them, right? Very similar to, what we're kind of doing here, where, if somebody wanted to eventually use you, they could. And it's much more referral based. So beyond that, if you're just looking at Upwork, you just started there, what are like some of the notable differences from your standpoint?
Yeah. So I've been on there for about a month, and just starting out. I posted some tweet yesterday with a bunch of takeaways.
Oh,
The main,
really?
yeah,
There.
the main one being that it's just like it's a grind, no different than Fiverr was starting out, except obviously Fiverr is a lot more inbound, in that people are reaching out to you, people are messaging you, people are placing direct orders from your gig page. Whereas Upwork, you're proactively submitting proposals, right? So that you're paying for, by the way. So let's say it's like
Do you pay for a proposal each time?
yeah, you do. I don't know what the conversion is. It's like maybe $1.50, $3 a proposal. But over the past month, me and my VA have sent over 100 proposals. I've spent like you know, $200 on connection, or like barely breaking even. Um, and it's a lot of work, because you're proactively reaching out to these people who have posted jobs. You're writing up a whole cover letter for them, and then especially when starting out, in my case, 80% of those aren't even getting looked at. So it's a bit frustrating and time intensive for a low return to start. I can't really speak to what a successful seller looks like on Upwork, because I'm not one of them, hopefully yet. But my understanding is that once you kind of rack up a bunch of earnings and a bunch of social proof on your profile, and they're different than Fiverr, life gets a lot easier on there. But I think even the difference between the completely inbound world that Fiverr is, and then the outbound prospect, a proposal submitting from Upwork is a major differentiator. And then obviously you have the project based work on Fiverr versus Upwork, which seems to be mostly hourly contract based, which is a pretty different setup as well. I personally prefer project-based work, just so it's like someone needs something, I can handle it. It's one and done. If they need more, they can come back. If they don't, we're good. Versus a kind of like nuanced contract where I don't know how much work it's going to be. I don't know how many hours they expect it to be, and it's kind of this just like unsettled um, responsibility that kind of sits on your profile.
Yeah, yeah. No, that makes sense. I think for some of the more reoccurring stuff, I don't know if you see any of it. Obviously Fiverr, like a year and a half ago, or maybe 2 years ago now, launched that subscription feature where like they could subscribe to your service. Have you seen that being put to use? Obviously, email marketing seems like something that would be that could be useful for subscription services. Have you seen any of that? And do you
Yeah,
like it?
it's a good question. I do like it, but I would say at this point, I ran the numbers a while back, and it's about 25% of my customers come back after their first order, and my return customers make up around half of my revenue. Um,
Cool.
of those stats, almost none of those come from subscriptions. They just keep ordering every time they need something.
That's funny.
That I don't know if it's the commitment, or maybe I just haven't been doing enough to sell it. But it's a pretty low number of subscription based orders. Maybe I get one or two a month, which is pretty low in the context of my total number of orders. And I joined a Fiverr roundtable a couple weeks ago with the team there, and I kind of let them know that subscriptions. I don't know if it was because of my service specifically or the way I'm expressing it, but the subscriptions are not really working too well for me. I think a lot of that is a function of when people place their first order with you. Um, if they want to subscribe, they're basically having to place a brand new order immediately thereafter for the same price. But generally, they might not need it immediately after they completed the next order. And so I suggested to Fiverr on this roundtable to kind of have like add subscription button that would basically just automatically subscribe you for the following month. So like someone orders from you today, they had a great experience, they could click subscribe, and then next month automatically that order will get placed as part, and that first order will be included as part of the subscription. Whereas today they place an order, they had a great experience. If they want to subscribe, they have to place a brand new order immediately thereafter and start that process over, which doesn't make sense for most of my clients. So stuff like that.
Right.
I just haven't seen a ton of success with it.
Yeah. No, it makes sense. I guess you come there project based, and then like there's that in between moment where you're happy, and then you're going to come back, but you don't know when specifically, unless it's something like super, reoccurring. And then at that point, maybe you're just trying to decide whether you want this to be reoccurring or not, and why not just come back unless there's some like real offer value there. Which some of these like subscription, there's like a discount to it.
Yeah, I have the discount active at probably 10 or 20%, but people still they either don't see it, they don't care. I don't know.
Yeah, no, makes sense. So it's interesting because there's always this discussion about take rates in these ecosystems, right? Upwork versus Fiverr, and Fiverr has like this take rate all in, right? When you're taking it all together, everything from the actual take rate, they take it from the buyer, they take some from the seller, they have promoted gigs, and we'll hopefully get there if that's something that you're even entertaining or using. But the take rate discussion, and there's always this question in the investment community is how high can this take rate go? Now, when I think of Upwork, which has a lower all-in take rate, at least from their financials, I think the actual take rate of the actual transaction is very similar at this stage, but the ending take rate for the seller and stuff is different. But the question here is really, it sounds like Upwork, you're putting more work in, so there's some of this extra spend. It sounds like you have a virtual assistant that is helping you, that you're paying for to put these proposals in. You're paying for the proposals themselves, while Fiverr's driving a lot of this inbound traffic to you, where you're not spending on a lot of things. And net, are you happy with the take rates from all these platforms? I think is the story here. Do you see that value that this platform gives you? Fiverr, obviously Upwork, you're still new there, but just discussion around take rate.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's a pretty important point for the platforms themselves and the sellers on them. People have mixed opinions. Some people think they're far too high. Some people are completely happy. I'm kind of somewhere in the middle there. Fiverr has been great in the sense that we're generating 1 million impressions a month. However many 10, 20,000 clicks and a couple hundred orders. With no marketing spend aside from promoted gigs, which is relatively small, and almost no upfront work, and there's a price to that, right? And the price is the 20% take. I think it's fair, and it makes sense. If you can drive 100% of inbound traffic to your services and you don't have to do anything for that, they can basically dictate their rate, because without them, you're not getting any of that exposure. Upwork, on the other hand, like you mentioned, I'm paying a VA to submit proposals. I'm paying to submit the proposals themselves via their Connect system. It's a lot more work to, find jobs and win them. Uh, and I think they take 10% versus Fiverr takes 20%. But honestly, like, with the amount of work that goes into winning a client on Upwork relative to Fiverr, I don't think it justifies the kind of percentage that they're taking. Obviously, they need to make money and they need to, figure out the right balance there. But I mean, just in my limited experience, only in the month or so that I've been on there, it's a lot. It's a lot of work to source clients there. So the paying for the connects, then winning the job, and then paying a fee on top of that, it definitely stings a little bit more than Fiverr, even though it's actually a smaller take, just because of the work that goes into it. So
Right.
it's my early take. Maybe that'll change in the next 6 months as I get ramped up on there. Um,
Yeah, what's your I guess thinking about the purchaser view, like what is someone average spending with you? Because that also dictates the difference there as well, right? Because if you're, let's say you're on Upwork and you're doing, I don't know, they have a higher spend per buyer in a sense, what they call it.
yeah,
If you're submitting, 50 bids and you get back, one of them, but one of those is, a $10,000 blah 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 project, the ROI on some of that time spent, and maybe it's less frequent work, but it's higher value dollar wise. That could play something into it as well. I don't know what your thoughts are there.
yeah, that makes sense, and that's definitely a fair take. I think the Fiverr, my average order size is around, I think, 120, 150. I think Fiverr's total spend per buyer. I don't know if this is average order or they're just like um, LTV or something, but I think I saw in one of the reports it was like 275 or something like that. So obviously dealing with lower ticket sizes than maybe a couple month long Upwork contract. I just haven't seen the fruits of
Sure,
those contracts yet on Upwork, so I'm still a little on the other side. But again,
definitely.
hopefully once those start coming in, I'll change my position there and kind of see why they set it up that way.
Cool. Yeah. So promoted gigs. Then they have Fiverr Neo, which is their generative AI kind of like search capability to find talent. You're probably in a strategically really good position for that.
Yeah.
But if you think of promoted gigs, like when was this introduced to you, and like how are you using it?
Yeah, so I promoted gigs. I think I was introduced to me in April 2020, 21. I don't know when it launched. I just remember when I was eligible for it.
And it's
Um,
just to promote your gig, right? So
and yeah, it's for those
an
not
ad.
familiar, it's literally an ad on Fiverr search itself. It's not being shown, anywhere else except if someone searches for email in the Fiverr search bar, there's going to be your Fiverr's choice or top recommended, and then right under that, there's usually um, a row of ad placements, and then if you continue to scroll, those ads will keep showing for your gigs. It started out with like a cap of like 50 cents a click or something, and I just wanted to drive as much traffic to my stuff as possible. And so I maxed all those out, and that was back in 2021. And I'm not sure how they you know track the pixels or whatever to attribute revenue to promoted gigs. I honestly question it, just given some of the messages I receive about how people find me. And for example, someone was referred to me, but they had a promoted tag on them. So you know, a little bit suspect, but generally, generally, I think it's performed really well. At some point, they made a switch to like an auto bidding system, which I switched to as soon as they offered it, and that drove the cost per clicks up dramatically. And my monthly spend, I think I went from like 300-400 bucks, which is when everything was capped, to like now I'm spending 1,300-1,500 bucks on promoted gigs every month. So dramatic increase, but some people were really pissed about that at the time. But frankly, I kind of just trust the process. If I'm able to drive clicks to my gigs and those are resulting in orders, I don't really care if I'm paying a dollar or $1.30 per click versus 50 cents, especially when the average ticket size is 150, 300. It's fine.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Right. So it sounds like you're pretty happy with promoted gigs, and they've progressively opened, the aperture of like, placement, and ad load, I guess, on the platforms. Is that kind of like the take?
Yeah. So some of them are a little tricky. Like for example, some gigs I'm already the top ranked service on there, so I don't need them, but I kind of keep them anyway. It's just like I don't want to mess with Fiverr and mess with their mess with my rankings at all. So I just like kind of said screw it and set whatever auto bid to show up as much as possible. But I did find a lot of benefit at it for, when I was launching newer services, a couple months ago, or maybe a year ago at this point. Once you stack 5 reviews, which I was able to do pretty quick through just like my own pre-existing clients, I just shot them a message and let them know I offered a new service. And so, I was able to get a quick influx there of new orders for the new gig, grab a couple of reviews, and once you have 5 reviews, you're eligible for promoting the gig, assuming your entire profile is eligible for promoting. And then once that stuff gets promoted, it does bring quite a bit of traffic to your page that you probably weren't getting beforehand, especially if you weren't ranked on the first page. And so it is a nice kickstart for launching new services. So I've seen benefit there. But for gigs where I was already top ranked, I don't know if it's actually benefiting, frankly.
Got it. Couple more segments here, like Fiverr Neo. What are you seeing there? And for those, they launched Fiverr Neo here recently in the last 2 quarters, really, and it's around using the same functionality that you think of ChatGPT. And you have a search bar. You write, this is what I want. This is who the type of characteristics I'm looking for in maybe the worker, the freelancer, to all the way to location and language and whatever you want to actually incorporate there. And then it spits out 1 or 3 different users or freelancers that they think best suits it. So it's a recommendation model in a sense, but it's much more pointed instead of sifting through a catalog of users. From your lens, I don't know how it engages with you. Do you see more traffic due to it? Do you see anything due to it? Like just any early takes?
Yeah. So early takes is I don't see anything on the seller end yet. I have no idea if someone found me through organic search or if they found me through Neo. I kind of played around with it like day at launch, and I was like, "Oh, this is pretty cool." And then that was pretty much the last time I touched it. On the seller end, we don't engage with it. We don't see it. I don't know if anyone's being recommended through it, and I haven't seen any change in traffic. I would hope I'm probably one of the more recommended services for my categories. And when I tested it, I was trying to get myself to show up. But beyond that first day, I haven't really used it or seen the impact of it. Though if they introduce some kind of feature where it was found by Neo or something, I think that would be pretty cool. And because it's definitely a cool implementation of of the technology. I would like to see more of it.
Yeah. Speaking of that, obviously since it sounds you're part of your gigs type of work in theory is in this sandbox of potential disruption with generative AI, or at least part of it. So the question isn't that, because I actually think this tool is an adjacent tool that can be used to help your work, but also people have to learn how to use these things and how to prompt and do it. So there's still friction between getting to the final conclusion of what we're all trying to achieve here. But more importantly is there's a whole discussion of all the companies out there that are potentially going to get disrupted by this. And, lo and behold, Fiverr's and Upworks and, a bunch of other names have come up that, there's potential disruption there. So ChatGPT rolls out. Some areas of the world, have gotten hit, but Fiverr from its financial perspective has not. So I'm trying to, turn to you and say, have you seen a change in behavior from your potential buyers, activity, anything out there that you can directly attribute that, launch date of GPT or ChatGPT and your traffic?
Yeah, I mean, from my personal experience with clients, people are trying to use it. They're messing around with ChatGPT. For example, I'll get some drafts of email marketing copy that's just straight ripped from GPT. I'll get some kind of messages that are very clearly GPT written and structured, where it's we're hiring for X position and we're looking for XYZ qualities. And I've gotten pretty good at recognizing when GPT is writing something person to person. In terms of the actual work itself, from clients' needs perspective, I really haven't seen too much of a change in what they're looking for. From my perspective, obviously with writing, it's been a huge help. I'm able to be work much more efficiently, um, and kind of crank stuff out a lot quicker than I used to. And I think that's going to be true with pretty much any digital service over the coming few years. But Fiverr in general getting hit by AI. First of all, like the marketplace business is it's just a great business model. You have the scalability, the network effects, the low overhead, no fulfillment, and you're taking a piece of both ends of the transaction, right? I don't see AI really fundamentally changing any of that in terms of the business model. I think it's going to be felt way more at the individual level for the buyers and sellers. For the types of businesses and clients on Fiverr, I don't anticipate too much of a drop in demand. Before ChatGPT launched, right before the kind of AI craze, all the information you needed to perform some kind of digital service was available, right? You could look it up on YouTube, you could Google your way through it and kind of troubleshoot yourself to a solution in probably 2-3 days. Now, obviously today, ChatGPT packages all that up, nice and neat for you, where you can query it with specific questions, and it even might kind of give you a head start there. But I mean, obviously, where we're at today with GPT-4, you're going to run into issues trying to do pretty much anything digital service related, and the type of person who gets stuck and then looks into it and learns it and troubleshoots it is probably the type of person that was never on Fiverr in the first place. They were probably just doing it themselves earlier. And so like, you don't know what you don't know. Right. And so I don't really foresee buyers, kind of just being like, oh, I don't need a freelancer. I'll just GPT myself through this.
Everything.
At least until, GPT 5 or 6, when, it's taken over the world. And then, we have bigger problems. But on the seller side, there's definitely going to be a dichotomy between those who, embrace the AI and those who don't, right? Those who do are going to be much more efficient. They're going to be able to complete work quicker. They can, charge less if they want because it's less work on their end. And those who don't are just going to, inevitably get kind of left behind. And so as sellers, as digital service providers, I think it's extremely important that you take these seriously, learn the tools, figure out how you can use it in your work, and enhance your work, because it's not going away.
Got it. Last question. I'm going to combine two, off platform and, broadening your scope of solutions. Obviously you start as a single seller, you hire some virtual, assistants to help. Like, is there plans to make an agency, number one, like where you have, multiple people doing your function? It sounds like virtual assistants are helping, but I don't know if they're helping with the actual work versus, some of the outside, more administrative stuff. But like, you're clearly creating a business. Sometimes people look at it as just like a, freelancer or seller, but there's clearly like a agency opportunity here. That's number one. Number two is, what's preventing you from doing a lot of the stuff off platform versus on? That's something that we often hear, not only for, the Fiverrs and the Upworks of the world, but the Etsy's of the world and anything like that, where clearly, you're coming back to where it's a marketplace, right? You're connecting two things, and that marketplace is taking something. So anyways, what's preventing you, the agency, and then we'll, close out with, some of you, where to find you.
Yeah, absolutely. So, the agency effort is something I've been thinking about for a long time, and it's kind of I've gotten closer to taking action on it as I've kind of gotten some of my time back with my help from VAs who are probably they're assisting in all types of the business. So they're handling a lot of my client communication now. They're handling some fulfillment. They're handling some admin stuff. So it's freed up a lot of my time for me to kind of think about where I want to go with this. When you're an agency, right, as a standalone agency, you're responsible for sourcing the work, right? And so, I'm not, if I, make a, design subscription service, for example, you can't just put it on a platform and then, a couple of years later have, a million impressions a month on it. You have to go out, you have to sell, you have to source the clients, which ironically, I hate doing.
Makes sense. Why you're on Fiverr.
So it's a significant amount of, upfront work, and you're doing a lot of selling and less fulfilling, and Fiverr allows you to actually focus on the quality of the work, versus the attracting new business. I think in an ideal world, I would have an agency running on its own, the Fiverr business running on its own, an Upwork business running on its own, and kind of all working in conjunction. I'm just not there yet. I would love to be. Um,
Sure.
but it's definitely a different set of skills, because you have to be, a good marketer, a good salesperson. Whereas on Fiverr, if you commit, I mean, there's obviously elements of marketing and sales on Fiverr too. But if you commit to the quality of the product and the quality of the work, it kind of snowballs on its own.
Cool. And then the off-platform question of, moving off-platform with your current work, and client X comes to you, they come again the second time, and you're like, let's do this off-platform. Not to
Yeah,
get you in trouble here, but
that's that's
what's
TOS.
what?
Uh, that's TOS 101. Definitely, Fiverr does not want you to take your work off the platform, and they make that very clear. I'm pretty, adamant about following those rules. So a lot of times I do get requests to just kind of, email me here, and we'll do it there. It's just not worth the risk for me to, for an extra, couple of $1,000 to kind of risk getting in trouble with, Fiverr and losing my, spot on the platform. They've been good to me. I have no problem following the rules.
For sure. What
So
about the ranking side of it, where obviously, there's level 2, level 3, whatever, pro. Obviously you need to keep that up, right? So you can't also risk not only breaking the rules, but also keeping the activity going, right? Because I think that's part of you being more active drives more activity, which is kind of like this, funnel. Is that part of the thought process there, or is it really the,
in terms
the
of
risky
bringing
part?
people off platform, no, because I'm just getting so much traction and so many inquiries on a daily basis and orders on a monthly basis that I'm not worried about losing that volume. It just comes, and it's been coming every single month for a few years now, and so I don't have a ton of concerns over that. Um, it's pretty much entirely TOS based. Me grabbing a handful of clients and taking them you know off the platform, assuming there was no TOS violation, would probably have no impact on ranking, just given the volume that I'm doing at this
Got
point.
it. Cool. That's it. We'll wrap there. We've been here for a long time. The Fiverr guy. You're gonna have to bill me after this through Fiverr. Get another gig. But the cool. Look, I want to. I'll put all the stuff in the show notes, but also make sure your handle on X or Twitter is relevant, and some of the other attributes of what you're doing. But where can people find more about you? And yeah, we'll exit there. Look, I appreciate you coming on. It was a great conversation in terms of getting to know someone on the inside that's been very successful, but multiple years in the making, and has seen the progression of the platform. Has also entertained another platform. So I think anyone always asking us the same questions. What's the difference between Upwork and Fiverr? I think now you can really tell what the main differences are, and these platforms are different for sure. They're going after the same, in theory, type of buyers sometimes, and type of sellers. If you take maybe the average, but at the same time, I think how they go about it is much different. So where can they find more about you? And we'll wrap.
Yeah, so you can follow me on my Twitter. It's I think it's at the Fiverr guy _. If you want to learn more about Fiverr and freelancing, that's a spot. And then if you need any email marketing help, you can check me out on Fiverr. I think it's fiverr.com/HRAPP98. So that's where you can find me. And thank you, Sean. I appreciate you having me. It was awesome.
Cool, man.